Okay, welcome to this explainer. You guys are in for a wild ride today. We're diving into Chapter 1 of a deeply fascinating story, the tale of Savarni Manu. It literally smashes together the cold, calculated world of futuristic space travel with the deep, ancient mysticism of Hindu mythology. Imagine leaving absolutely everything you know behind, right? Floating out there in the absolute void of space, only to realize that the deepest mysteries aren't actually in the stars, they're buried in your own ancient past.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Specifically, we're looking at the deep dive audio titled, "Do Not Show This to Any Computer." So, picture this. It's the year 2049. A young guy named Savarni Chaya is sitting totally alone inside a massive spacecraft called Noah's Ark Ship Number 81. He's way out there, near the Kuiper Belt at the outer edge of our solar system, getting ready for 3 long years of hypersleep. But he's not doing what you'd normally expect. He's not reviewing flight logs or watching a movie. Instead, he's staring at this bizarre handwritten letter from his dad, a man who literally abandoned him when he was just a year old. And the letter? It opens with a prayer to Sri Ganesha, an ancient cosmic image, and a seriously terrifying warning.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive, violent clash between two totally different realities. On one hand, you've got Savarni's physical reality, right? This highly advanced, totally sterile cockpit, endless streams of data, the freezing Kuiper Belt outside, and an AI named Maya just calmly counting down the minutes to hibernation. But on the other hand, you have the chaotic human warmth of this physical letter. We're talking real paper, real ink, invoking ancient cosmic imagery and karma. I mean, in the hyper-advanced world of 2049, just the simple existence of handwritten ink feels completely alien.
So, how did Savarni end up floating alone with this crazy letter? Well, we actually have to flash back 2 years to figure that out. There's this massive private space corporation, Space Routine Incorporated, and they were recruiting for a highly secretive mission. And Savarni? He was literally the perfect candidate. He hit almost every single criteria on their, frankly, kinda suspicious list. Perfect BMI, a total mind for math and science, and a uniquely high tolerance for absolute solitude. Basically the ultimate introvert's dream job, right? But there was one extremely weird catch. The company specifically wanted someone with absolutely zero historical knowledge. And Savarni, who had spent his entire life obsessing over the future, well, he fit the bill perfectly.
But once he got accepted, they didn't just send him to some standard astronaut training camp. No way. Savarni was shipped off to a completely secret research facility on a classified Pacific island. Sure, it had a desalination plant, fancy research labs, and a gorgeous coastline. But to Savarni, it basically felt like a prison with a nice view. He was entirely cut off from the outside world.
The whole island was essentially this extreme psychological pressure cooker. Think of it like the ultimate digital detox, but, enforced by a shadowy megacorporation. On day 2, boom, all his personal devices are confiscated. By week 1, total isolation begins. And then, the researchers started giving him books, specifically vast amounts of human history. When he finally started reading the ancient Indian epics like the Mahabharata, something inside him just snapped. He felt this visceral, totally unexplainable connection to the texts. It was as if the stories were incomplete, like they were still moving and pointing directly at him. Ultimately, the pressure was just too much. He had a mental break and flat out refused to participate in any more training until they let him call his mom.
So the island's governor, this guy named Bob Clive, finally caves and allows a heavily monitored video call. Savarni just breaks down. He's telling his mom all about the books and how these ancient stories felt unfinished, like they were waiting for him. And his mom, instead of being surprised or confused, she looks at him dead in the eye and drops an absolute bombshell. She says, "Your father used to say the same thing." And guys, before Savarni could even begin to process that, the screen just goes dark. They cut the call.
Now, what's really interesting is how his mother actually framed this whole journey. Before he even left for the mission, she gave him a blessing. She told him to go toward whatever his Sanchit was calling him toward. So what is that? Sanchit is this really deep Sanskrit concept. It means stored karma, the weight of your past actions. It's basically the invisible gravity of destiny that follows you before you even realize what path you're walking on. So she knew, even back then, that his path was tied to something way, way older than space travel.
Okay, let's snap back to the present day. We're on Noah's Ark Ship 81. Suddenly, the master screens in the cockpit go totally dark, and a single face pops up. It's Banker, the billionaire CEO of Space Routine himself. Now, for years, Savarni worshipped this guy's super confident, visionary image. But the man looking back at him on the screen right now, he's exhausted, he's carrying a very heavy secret.
In one breath, Banker shatters literally all of Savarni's illusions. He tells him that he actually arranged for Savarni to be chosen because he and Savarni's absent dad were childhood friends. Yeah, the guy who built Savarni's futuristic dreams was actually the exact same guy orchestrating his current nightmare.
And then Banker drops the really terrifying news. Remember that island governor, Bob Clive? Yeah, he wasn't a friend. He actually came to Savarni's room that day to arrest him. You see, because of his father's mysterious and super dangerous past, these shadowy enemies are closing in, and they operate on a very ancient logic. If they can't find the father, they take the family. Banker delivers the absolute crushing blow that Savarni's mother has been taken into custody. So, the mission? It's entirely compromised. Banker gives Savarni a totally impossible ultimatum. If he wants to force the company to bring the ship home and potentially save his mom, Savarni has to manually sabotage his own spacecraft. I mean, just think about that for a second. You are completely alone out there in the dark void of space. Do you protect your own life and carry out the mission? Or do you risk dying out there, completely alone, to protect the mother who raised you?
Banker actually walks him through the terrifying mechanics of how to do this. Savarni has to take a specific rectangular object hidden on the ship and literally plug it into a slot behind the main monitor. Doing this will instantly kill the ion drive fusion engine. Boom, gone. The ship will lose all propulsion and just start drifting toward the asteroid belt. Now, Banker claims his calculations are rock solid, that gravity will naturally curve the ship back to Earth in about 2 years. But if the math is wrong, Savarni will just drift into the void and die out there, alone.
So Savarni remembers his mother. He remembers those ancient stories he read about duty and these impossible world-ending choices. He grabs the object, feels this weird magnetic pull, and slides it right into the slot. And instantly, the massive, vibrating heartbeat of that ion drive engine just dies. All those clean, functional cockpit lights vanish, and they're replaced by this eerie, dull glow of emergency amber strips.
The silence that follows is absolute. I mean, it is the heavy, crushing silence of a giant mechanical beast that was alive a second ago and is now absolutely dead. Savarni is completely adrift. There's no steering, there's no propulsion, just the slow, invisible arithmetic of gravity deciding whether he lives or dies. The finality of his choice just echoes in that super quiet cockpit.
So the crucial point is, Savarni still actually has to survive the drift. He climbs into the smoothed, freezing cold steel of the Hypersleep pod. The filaments hook up to his body. And then the AI, Maya, delivers her final sign-off, which is honestly chilling. She says, "Sleep well, Savarni. I'll keep the lights on as long as I can." The lid closes, the coolant starts rising, and his entire physical world just narrows down to a single tiny amber stripe.
But almost immediately, things go wrong. The monitor inside his pod flashes this utterly terrifying message: estimated wake-up, error, temporal drift detected. Yeah, that neat, precise scientific plan that Banker calculated, it is completely unraveling. The machines are failing. Or maybe something far older and way more powerful is actually taking over.
Let's see how this builds, because this is where it gets truly wild. Savarni's eyes close, but instead of fading into the blank nothingness of hypersleep, he wakes up, falling. He's totally transitioned from the cold steel of a modern pod into this massive, bottomless stone shaft. This is known as the Well of Maya. It's a metaphysical dimension. Think of it as the state that precedes consciousness itself. In this space, whatever you think, whatever you fear, manifests instantly into reality.
And in this bizarre, zero-gravity well, he is not alone. He meets a cosmic entity who calls himself Paramanu, which literally translates to the smallest of the small. But instead of some terrifying alien creature, the ultimate witness of time actually takes the super comforting shape of a chubby, calm toddler wearing a white kurta. Paramanu is this entity that records the cosmic log of time, existing in every single in-between space. And he's there right now to guide Savarni through the consequences of his own mind.
This guidance is absolutely crucial, because in the Well of Maya, your thoughts literally become weapons. Savarni's intense, boiling anxiety about his mom, his missing dad, and the ship he just broke suddenly solidifies into a physical nightmare. He finds himself standing in a city that is being ripped apart by military fire. Paramanu explains to him that this is the Shankasura, the demon of doubt. It's quite literally his own imposter syndrome and anxiety weaponized. It's born directly from Savarni's own mind, it feeds on his fear, and it is fully capable of destroying everything his mind has ever built. To survive, Savarni has to figure out how to quiet his mind to escape the Shankasura. He ends up diving into a mystical lake, just to hear the true ancient history of his own karma. At this point, he has completely crossed the threshold from science fiction straight into deep mythology. He realizes his father wasn't just some guy on the run, he's actually tied to this massive cycle of cosmic rebirth. Which leaves us with a really provocative question as we wrap up this explainer. When the cold, calculated precision of human engineering totally fails and you are left adrift in the dark, what ancient, unstoppable forces are waiting out there to catch you?